So, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our first ministerial roundtable of this year's UNCTAD16. For the next 90 minutes or so, we're going to be exploring further with our speakers how trade can be reimagined. That word we've been hearing a lot of so far today, amid that shifting global landscape to be a catalyst for inclusive and sustainable development. We'll be bringing perspectives from right around the world with our panelists alongside me here on the stage, and it promises to be a very insightful discussion. I have the pleasure of moderating the two panel sessions ahead for you as part of this roundtable. But first, I'd like to welcome back to the stage Secretary General of UN Trade and Development, Ms. Rebecca Greenspan, for some opening remarks. Secretary General.
I'm sorry that I have to take a step up, but if not, you will see me like in here. Honorable ministers and authorities, thank you so much for being with us. We are honored you made the time to join in this very busy year for all. We are all very eager to hear you, to hear you all. So welcome to this roundtable on reimagining trade. We gather here because we share a fundamental conviction. Trade has great potential to open doors to development. For small countries especially, development without trade is nearly impossible. Reimagining trade to keep those doors open is the subject of this dialogue. I always say, we discussed about trade and finance before. Imagine a small country without a hard currency. And trade is the one that brings the currency to our country. So really, finance, trade, and development are intertwined. I'll make 2 points very quickly. First, about the current trade context. Second, about what reimagining trade could mean. I start with context. This year, trade has faced unprecedented pressures. Trade policy uncertainty has broken all records. Tariff levels have swung widely. All of you here have had to deal with these violent swings one way or the other. But what has been most surprising has been the incredible resilience of the trade system. According to WTO, 72% of global trade still flows under its rules. And our numbers suggest that goods trade is growing 5% year on year, and services 6% in current prices. Last year, services contribute to 60% of total trade growth, despite being only a quarter of trade volume. So services really are growing very, very fast. Services cannot be tariffed like goods, and so they have been more resilient than goods in the present atmosphere, in the present context, because they do not face these barriers. They have barriers of their own, but not tariffs. The Global South has also driven resilience. South-South trade is expanding at 8% this year, 9% if we exclude China. So it's not only China, as I said in my remarks in the morning, is really a lot of South-South trade that have come with a renewed dynamism. And regional integration also has been part of this resilience because it continues to grow. 370 trade agreements are now in effect, 370, up from 50 that we had in the 1990s. So a lot has happened since then. These agreements have been crucial in holding the line and in avoiding the kind of collapse in global trade we saw in the 1930s. Yet, Challenges remain acute, particularly to the most vulnerable. Africa's share of global trade has never risen above 3%. So even as we have tried, they represent only 3% of total trade. Many developing countries remain locked in commodity dependence, unable to move up value chains. And today, many of them are losing preferential access while facing much higher absolute and relative tariffs that are harder to navigate and that erode their competitive advantage. So there are three things that are happening to the vulnerable countries. First, they are losing preferential access, like AGOA for Africa. Second, tariffs are higher, so they have a higher buyer. But the one that also worries us a lot is that many of the most vulnerable countries have higher tariffs than developed countries. And so in terms of competitive relative prices, they are suffering much more. Yet, this brings me to what reimagining trade can mean. For one, it doesn't mean returning to the status quo. UNCTAD has never been silent about needed reform, but we need a system that is based on common, predictable, and fair rules and principles. So reform the system, but we need a system. The challenge is making these principles deliver. We've always agreed, for example, that developing countries need differential treatment. Yet LDCs still contribute only 1% to the exports of the world, 1%. We must ask ourselves, has the treatment been differential enough for the vulnerable countries? Or has the differential system been used as it was envisaged? Maybe we are not using it, and that's also a problem. New standards create similar challenges. When smallholder farmers must comply with sustainability standards designed for different supply chains, or when digital rules assume infrastructure that does not exist in most LDCs, we've created barriers that function like tariffs, even if they look different. And finally, and above all, reimagining trade means listening to each other. Countries' concerns about trade are real, no matter where they come from. UNCTAD has always prided itself as a safe place for trade talk. You are not here today to negotiate a trade deal, so you can be open about new ideas because it's not compromising your trade position. You are here to speak candidly about what's working and what isn't, to understand each other's constraints and aspirations, to find common ground where others see only division. That is the real value of dialogue like the one that we are having here today, starting now. And with this, I leave you with the wonderful panel, and I am envious that you will listen, and I have to go. Thank you.
Secretary General, thank you very much indeed for your opening remarks, really setting the context for our discussion this afternoon. So, reimagining trade, it's a big ask. How are we going to do it? Hopefully our panelists here this afternoon will give us some very invaluable perspectives and insights into the approaches from their different countries. Let me introduce our panelists. Alongside me here from left to right, we have Her Excellency Ms. Eleonora Carrois, who's the Minister Delegate for Francophonie, International Partnerships and French Nationals Abroad in France. Good afternoon. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Alongside you, we have His Excellency Mr. Anil Kumar Sinha, who's the Minister of Industry, Commerce and Supplies in Nepal. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Alongside you here, we have His Excellency Mr. Julian Palaku Kiyonga, who's the Minister of External Trade for the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Welcome. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. And last but not least, on the very end there, we have His Excellency Mr. Michał Baranowski, Undersecretary of State in the Ministry of Economic Development and Technology in Poland. Thank you very much, all of you, for sparing time to be with us here in Geneva this afternoon for this very important conversation. I'd like to start with the Democratic Republic of the Congo, if you don't mind, Minister. You know, you're one of the most resource-rich countries in Africa, right? With huge potential to benefit from and to contribute to a sustainable world. What would you say are some of the main challenges standing in your way in terms of realizing that potential?
Merci beaucoup. Je vais parler en français pour ceux qui ont les kits de traduction, pour qu'ils puissent les avoir. Merci pour la question. Je vais commencer, malheureusement, Madame Rebecca n'est pas là. Je voulais commencer par la remercier pour l'invitation. Et commencer par une petite anecdote. Depuis le matin, j'ai entendu parler de petits pays. Et donc, quand on parle de petits pays, c'est qu'il y a des grands pays. Alors, la question que je voudrais d'abord poser à la salle, c'est de savoir quand est-ce qu'un pays est petit et quand est-ce qu'un pays est grand. Parce que lorsqu'on voit par exemple la Suisse, elle n'a que 41 000 km², mais lorsqu'on voit son produit intérieur brut, la Suisse est à 900 milliards de dollars américains. Par contre, la RDC, mon pays, a une superficie de 2 340 000 km², mais elle a un PIB de 70 milliards. Alors la question, c'est de savoir quel est le pays le plus petit. Est-ce que c'est en termes de taille ou en termes de la santé de son économie? Et donc, pour qu'on ne tombe pas dans ce genre de stigmatisation, j'aurais voulu qu'on ne parle pas de petits pays ou de grands pays. Parce que les pays qui sont supposés être petits peuvent avoir une bonne santé économique. Et les pays qui semblent ne pas avoir une bonne santé économique sont ceux-là qui alimentent les autres à avoir la santé économique. Donc, je voudrais donc commencer par cette anecdote. Alors, revenant à la question, la RDC, c'est un scandale, comme tout le monde le sait, avec suffisamment de matières. Vous avez dit, en termes miniers, c'est la RDC qui est le réservoir de tous les minerais stratégiques. Aujourd'hui, on en parle, les cobalt, les lithium, les cuivres, les zinc, les nickel, et tout ce que vous pouvez connaître sur la Terre. Mais maintenant, qu'est-ce qui fait qu'on n'arrive pas toujours à atteindre un niveau de développement comme celui que je viens de décrire tout à l'heure? C'est parce que nous avons été presque dans un modèle qui nous a été imposé, ce qu'on appelle le modèle colonial, d'extraction des matières premières sans jamais y ajouter une valeur ajoutée. Et donc, la stratégie actuelle du président de la République, son Excellence Félix Antoine Tshisekedi, c'est de changer de paradigme de gestion des ressources. C'est-à-dire, au lieu de ne se limiter qu'à l'extraction des matières brutes et alimenter les industries du Nord, eh bien, aujourd'hui, maintenant, l'appel est fait pour que la transformation se fasse au niveau local. Parce qu'il a été démontré qu'on ne capte que seulement 3% de la valeur marchande. Et donc, le nouveau paradigme, c'est la transformation locale. Deuxième élément important pour l'économie de la RDC, c'est l'agriculture. Peut-être beaucoup de gens ne le savent pas, la République démocratique du Congo est l'un des pays au monde disposant de 80 millions d'hectares de terres destinées à l'agriculture. Et donc, on peut nourrir 2 milliards d'habitants de la planète si on changeait de modèle de gestion de nos terres. Et donc, comme vous avez dit, la politique actuelle est de pouvoir considérer nos terres comme un potentiel important qui peut arriver à donner des réponses à l'humanité, notamment en transformant notre propre agriculture. Mais le défi qui s'ajoute à ça, il est structurel. C'est au niveau des infrastructures. Même si on développe cette agriculture, on devra évacuer les produits vers des grands centres de consommation. C'est ainsi qu'il y a des défis liés aux routes, liés au chemin de fer, liés à l'énergie qui sera utilisée pour la transformation de tout ce qu'on aura produit. Alors, l'ensemble de tous ces défis pour la République démocratique du Congo ne constitue pas un problème. Ça constitue plutôt des opportunités d'investissement. Donc, pour des gens qui veulent investir, eh bien, ces défis-là, aux yeux des gens, sont des occasions d'investissement parce que si on y investit, eh bien, on aura un retour sur son investissement le plus rapidement possible. Voilà pourquoi notre pays est en train de s'ouvrir au monde entier pour faire un appel à des capitaux étrangers, comme ont été d'autres pays, de manière à venir transformer avec nous cette dynamique locale qui a commencé à naître avec l'initiative du président de la République. Voilà pour commencer comment je peux lancer les débats.
And just very briefly, is there anything in particular you think vulnerable countries need from the international trading system for sustainable and meaningful development? Any key things that you would want to see?
Moi, je crois que c'est dont
Just
les
very
pays...
briefly, because we have a couple of minutes. Yeah.
Ce dont les pays ont besoin, comme nous sommes à la UNCTAD, c'est de renforcer leur politique commerciale. Il est vrai que beaucoup de pays tardent à avoir de bonnes politiques commerciales, les règles qui doivent être dictées, notamment les règles d'origine. Je crois qu'il est important que la UNCTAD, comme elle l'a fait avec d'autres pays, qu'elle puisse accompagner des pays qui ont un potentiel comme la RDC, de manière à disposer de politiques commerciales qui leur permettront de faire des échanges avec le monde entier et ainsi contourner cette sorte de populisme qui commence à s'installer et qui nous ramène vers l'unilatéralisme, alors que tous, nous voulons aspirer vers le multilatéralisme.
Okay. Minister, thank you very much indeed for now. We'll be coming back to you for some more perspectives in a moment. I'd like to turn to your fellow minister alongside you here from Nepal. Thank you again for joining us. Now, I wouldn't need to remind the audience, but in September this year, obviously, there were nationwide youth-led protests in the country. An interim government was formed in your country under Sushila Karki. So for you now as a country, how important do you think international trade would be? I mean, do you think trade will be this important catalyst for creating youth employment and sustainable development going forward?
Thank you very much for taking up this question and taking interest on the Nepalese politics also, because politics always has a direct impact on the trade and the development. Let me start with how this issue evolved in Nepal. The Gen Z protest started from the people's dissatisfaction against the corruptions of the governments. Corruptions not only at a petty level, but at the very, very high level also in policy levels. And the opportunities were lost for the youth in the country. Now, what really happened was it was a simple protest that they came up and they said that this corruption has to be stopped, and the brain drains as well as the human resources, export of human resources, I would call it, to many other developing countries or developed countries. It was a matter of concern because our skills were also being drained out. So the question came up with the youngsters, of course, around 20, below 30 years of age. They started very silently, but the government's reaction to that protest was so harsh that it went so bad that a lot of private properties, public properties, and including the secretariats, the parliament buildings, everything was burned down. Not by the, I wouldn't say it was by the Gen Zs, but there were infiltrators who actually came in because we have been having a lot of political instabilities for a very long time. And that is one reason why the economy of the country is not getting a proper momentum that we were expecting. And as a result
So is
of
this
that
now a big
protest,
turning point then?
yeah, it is a turning point.
Yes.
It was certainly, it only happened for 24 hours. And immediately after that, the previous government, the parliament was dissolved, the previous government resigned, and the compromise government was formed under the leadership of former Chief Justice of Nepal, who is now the Prime Minister of Nepal, Mrs. Sushila Karki. Now, it was a small government that the challenge we are having, it's very, very small, but we have to take up the challenge and we have to gain the momentum in case of economic circle.
Yeah.
Now, what we are doing, only 3 issues were actually raised during the protest. Good governance, fighting corruptions, creating conducive business environment with more investments and export-led growth. That was the basic issue that was raised. Then second issue was the investigation of those who were involved in the past corruptions and also those involved in the suppression of the movement. And the third one was that came up afterwards for us because we are in the interim government. We said that the whole power has to go to the public. people's government has to be formed. So we have got this huge task of having an election within next 5 months' time and hand over the government to the elected government. So that's the process. During that time, we have to have the economic things rolling on. Now, everybody knows that Nepal is surrounded by two huge countries who are big stakeholders in the international market. India from 3 sides and China on the north. And we have got very conducive, very friendly relation with both of them, where both of them are very, very supportive to Nepal. And that's it was all for good causes. Now, what we need to do is to go back and see that our economy actually restarts. Our internal economy has to revolve with the production of use of our local products, have a local economy rolling on, and then we extend to the other side. So for the country like Nepal, the trade is a very, very important thing of different kind. We have got very limited resources being a landlocked country, so we need to give much more focus on the local upliftment of our skills, developments, as well as investments on the human resources.
Okay, so domestic and international trade, very important going forward. Thank you very much indeed for now. Let's turn to France and the Minister Delegate alongside me here. As we've heard a lot of talk at the conference so far, and there'll be a lot of more talk about it, about how the global economic landscape is shifting. It's in flux, some people would say. France has always been a long supporter of regional integration, multilateralism. How important do you think global cooperation is now more than ever in the trade agenda? And how can the international trading system be strengthened so that it supports sustainable development, which we also talk a lot about?
Well, thank you very much for this very broad question.
Yeah, and you've got 3 minutes to answer it.
Okay, I'll take the challenge. Et comme je suis ministre de la francophonie, je vais parler en français. Et je pense que c'est important aussi de défendre cette langue. Non, avant de vous répondre, j'aimerais bien revenir à ce que vous disiez, monsieur le ministre, sur les petits pays. Et je vous rejoins, ça n'a pas de sens de parler ou de diviser les pays, de les opposer entre petits et grands pays. Et c'est un débat qui, à mon sens, ne devrait pas avoir lieu ici, tout comme on ne devrait pas parler du nord global, du sud global, parce que où est le sud et où est le nord, parfois la question se pose. En revanche, s'il y a une chose qu'on doit vraiment avoir à l'esprit, et un concept que l'on doit défendre, parce que ça va bien au-delà du concept, c'est le multilatéralisme. Si on n'est pas dans des instances dans lesquelles on peut débattre, si on n'est pas dans des instances dans lesquelles on peut décider, prendre des actions sur des enjeux qui sont des enjeux globaux par définition, eh bien nous n'y arriverons pas. Et la France, depuis des décennies, et avec beaucoup de force depuis quelques mois, défend justement les principes du multilatéralisme. Le président de la République les a défendus lors de l'Assemblée générale des Nations Unies il y a quelques semaines. Et je pense que s'il est si important de les défendre aujourd'hui, c'est parce qu'elles sont questionnées, parce que le fonctionnement, la gouvernance de plusieurs instances aujourd'hui pose question. Et je pense que de les défendre, ça ne veut pas dire que tout va bien ou dire que rien ne doit être changé. Au contraire, nous sommes convaincus que ce qu'on appelait le consensus de Washington, qui reposait sur la libéralisation des échanges, n'est pas une évidence pour tout le monde aujourd'hui. Et nous assistons, il est évident aussi, et il faut le rappeler, à une forme de ralentissement de l'économie mondiale. Une fois qu'on a dit ça, comment est-ce qu'on agit? Parce que ce qui est clair aussi, c'est que globalement, les pays à travers le monde veulent réaliser cette transition écologique, cette transition numérique aussi, parce qu'on voit la révolution que constitue le numérique avec l'intelligence artificielle, et aussi une transition démographique. En tout cas, en France, c'est d'une actualité criante. Donc le commerce a toute sa place dans la redéfinition de nos apports et de nos échanges. Et une chose qui est très claire en France, c'est qu'il ne faut pas opposer développement économique et développement, transition environnementale. Et c'est tout le sens de l'agenda des 4 P, du pacte de Paris pour les peuples et pour la planète, c'est-à-dire on ne peut pas opposer un développement et l'autre, parce qu'en réalité, la transition écologique est aussi vectrice de développement, est aussi vectrice d'échange, et elle ne peut se faire en autarcie, c'est-à-dire que ça doit nécessairement se faire avec les autres pays et en accompagnant aussi les acteurs du secteur privé et les différents acteurs qui ont leur rôle à jouer dans cette transition. Donc le multilatéralisme, pour revenir, monsieur le ministre, c'est le meilleur rempart face à la loi du plus fort. Et c'est cela qui peut nous mettre d'accord, sans avoir à trouver des définitions ou sans avoir à se positionner les uns par rapport aux autres. Et les règles doivent être adaptées pour permettre aux pays qui sont en développement, qui sont les moins avancés, comme c'est le cas à l'OMC, d'être accompagnés dans cette transition qui est nécessaire et qui doit se faire de manière juste, mais aussi en prenant en compte les réalités du monde tel que nous vivons aujourd'hui, qui n'est évidemment pas celui d'il y a 80 ans, lorsque les principes ont été édictés et posés. Donc cette approche à la fois pragmatique mais profondément ambitieuse est celle qui nous guide en France et celle qui va aussi guider nos prochains grands rendez-vous multilatéraux. Et donc c'est aussi ce qui est sorti du pacte de Bridgetown en 2021 et qui a accompagné justement cette transition. Donc je pense que c'est à la fois une conviction politique mais qui embarque justement l'économique et qui est guide de notre action.
Thank you very much indeed for your perspective. So standing up and supporting multilateralism is so important. You underline that very, very clearly in your comments. Thank you so much. If we can turn to Poland, right at the end there. Sorry, I can just about see you. Trade economists, they will always say trade is a win-win, not a zero-sum game. They're pretty convinced about that. In your view, from Poland, what key principles and elements does the rules-based trading system need to uphold, to ensure there is that inclusivity, resilience, and support for sustainable development in all countries?
Great, thank you for this question. Let me say it's wonderful to be in Geneva, despite this rainy weather, and share the panel with such brilliant minds. I also very much appreciate the introduction that was given by Secretary General, because we are in a moment when the rules that you asked about and the principles are being challenged, to some extent being modified. And I very much want to agree also, not surprisingly, with my French colleague, emphasizing the importance of multilateralism and really rules in our trading system that benefits prosperity, benefits development. So you ask about what are the principles. And I will speak also from Polish perspective, where we tremendously benefited from the openness of the trade system, of the openness of the rule-based aspect of the last 35 years. And I don't know if you all had to guess here in the room, we all know that the fastest growing economy over the last 30, 40 years has been China. But which economy has been the second fastest growing? And you probably will guess, given that I'm saying this, that it's in fact been Poland. And Poland has benefited tremendously from this openness that we are seeing. From the openness, but also predictability. And so the principle number one that we need to maintain is the predictability of the system. I have had the privilege of chairing number of trade councils when Poland held the presidency of the EU in the first part of the year, which was, as you remember, a bit of a challenging moment for world trade and for our trade negotiations. And it's very clear that the power is back in our trade and development framework. So the focus on predictability is a must. And to get that, we absolutely need to reform the rules. If we don't reform the rules will go away. And I had a chance to, about a week ago, Secretary General of WTO had a speech to European trade ministers, and she described WTO as a plumbing in the house. And her point is, you forget about the plumbing on good days. If everything is working, no one is remembering about the plumbing. But when things start breaking down, you really remember and you see the value of the plumbing. And I think that's what's at stake when it comes to predictability. I think very much a trust is another principle that we need to maintain and rebuild. And the trust is being challenged by countries that are overusing, including WTO, including openness of other economies. And because we are so focused here, rightly so, in UNCTAD on development, we need to do this in partnership, both across the globe, but also with our people. Because right now, to large extent, the trade benefits the largest corporations, the wealthiest individuals. In Poland, as in many other countries, we are trying to maintain and promote the growth of trade for small and medium enterprises. The trade has to work both for less developed countries and less developed part of our internal societies. Otherwise, we'll lose the support for the open, rule-based international system. So predictability, trust, and partnership are the three areas that I would like to highlight.
And I would just like to stay with you for my next question. We heard our French speaker here mentioning technology, the digital economy. Obviously, there are all these new challenges and opportunities around the digital economy, but also things like climate change. How do you think the international rules-based global trading system should be adapting to those specific things that are really taking hold in many ways now, right?
Right. So, of course, both digital transformation and green transition can be a great opportunities for our economy. No question about it.
But how do you keep everybody up with
exactly.
you?
And I think the key question here is, and that's, I don't know if it's for this panel, and it's a bit of a, but how do we maintain an agreement that perhaps in a situation where not everyone agree? How do we develop a useful, perhaps pluralistic trade agreements? So we have pockets of rules, including in those new areas, even if on the broader scale we are seeing erosion of those rules. And I think that's the direction in which we need to think of also when we talk about the reform of WTO, which is a key topic, of course, for development as well.
Okay, thank you very much indeed for your perspectives. I'd like to turn that now back to our minister from Nepal that's joining us on the panel this afternoon. We talked to you about sort of looking forward after those youth-led protests, and you were saying that trade obviously going to be crucial for the country going forward. Is there going to be a particular focus on regional integration or global trade, or are both of these equally important for your country?
Thank you for the question. You only raised two issues, regional or the global, but I would like to focus on the bilateral trade also, and with the neighboring countries as well as countries in our region. So, as you said, trade is an engine of economy, and we have to restart from a scratch sort of thing at this moment, though we have got a rolling economy. It's very, very important because Nepal's trade is very critical at this moment because economic recovery and inclusive growth is a major question there. Our trade to GDP ratio stood at 43.8% in 2021. That's the report of WTO Secretariat 2025 that I just got. Then, while Nepal's trade integration strategy launched in 2023 explicitly aims to boost the trade to the GDP ratio to 55% by 27-28, identifying 13 key strategies areas such as medicinal hubs, tourism, services, carpets, pasmina, coffee, hydropower, and IT. So these are the areas where we need to invest as well as put our young generations into action for economic growth sort of thing. It is equally important to diversify our exports as the export share to total trade is around 13.31% in 81-82, according to our customs report. And this imbalance actually reflects an urgent need to diversify export, attract investment, and create productive jobs. Now, to achieve that one, the objectives, we need to have a bilateral understandings and trust with the neighboring countries as well as in our region first, because those are, Nepal has got totally open border from all sides. That's very possibly interesting to you. No. So we have a lot of infiltrations of the illegal trades that we have to control, and our resources are not allowing to stop it in a significant way. However, having said that, the administrative setups are giving a lot of priority to this, and the trade that we have the formal trade between the neighboring countries is an issue at this moment that we have to enhance at the enhance a bit. Now, coming back to the regional things, certainly regional as well as global, both are equally important to us, and we must have a trust, we must have a capacity building, and we must have some investment for the upliftment of our skills as well as for the export of our knowledges and the products.
Thank you. So regional and global trade are both important to you going forward. I'd like to turn back to the Democratic Republic of the Congo and our minister we have here. Let's talk a bit about UNCTAD. We're convening this conference under UNCTAD this week. They have a very important role in supporting their member states. What support would you like to see from UNCTAD, particularly in terms of aligning national trade policies with the global trading system?
Oui, la CNUSED a un rôle très grand à jouer. J'ai suivi ce matin un intervenant qui disait que la prospérité fondée sur l'inégalité est instable. C'est une phrase que j'ai retenue. Et donc, je crois que ceux qui pensent qu'ils ont des économies prospères et qu'ils ne peuvent pas partager la prospérité, évidemment, ils se trompent. Parce qu'à un moment donné, leur prospérité va se buter à un problème. Et donc, il faut une prospérité partagée pour que le monde soit aussi équitable. Et donc, la CNUSED a un rôle à jouer d'accompagner les politiques commerciales de certains pays, comme celle de la RDC, pour leur permettre d'être à niveau, de pouvoir se conformer à la réglementation internationale pour gagner les marchés. Parce qu'en fait, qui dit commerce, dit marché. Qui dit marché, dit demande. Qui dit également demande, la demande appelle un autre concept, c'est la production. C'est-à-dire, vous ne pouvez pas dire que vous exercez le commerce sans que vous disposiez des marchés, sans que vous disposiez d'autres outils liés à la production pour permettre à ce que la production saisisse les marchés et finalement on exerce le commerce. Et donc, pour moi, la CNUSED, qui a déjà élaboré des programmes avec beaucoup de pays, la CNUSED qui a aidé les pays comme l'Angola, comme le Kenya, comme d'autres pays à concevoir des programmes adaptés, devra continuer à identifier quels sont les États qui accusent un certain nombre de retards dans leur politique commerciale pour les mettre à niveau, permettre à ces États-là de saisir les marchés qui existent. Parce que des marchés sont nombreux à travers le monde, mais il y a beaucoup de pays qui tardent encore à les saisir parce qu'ils n'ont pas de politique commerciale adaptée et mise à niveau. Et donc, ma demande que je voudrais formuler à la CNUSED aujourd'hui, et je suis en contact d'ailleurs avec certains organes de la CNUSED, c'est d'accompagner les parties, les pays, à définir clairement leur politique commerciale, leur doter des outils nécessaires qui leur permettraient de saisir les marchés mondiaux.
Thank you very much indeed, Minister. If I could just turn back to France, I mean, you were saying earlier on that we have to stand up and defend multilateralism. That's really, really important. But is standing up and defending enough? How do we enhance the sort of commitment of countries to be cooperating multilaterally around the world? And where do you think UNCTAD comes into this?
C'est une question très intéressante parce que pour pouvoir embarquer des partenaires, pour pouvoir embarquer surtout les peuples, il faut qu'ils soient convaincus. Et pour qu'ils soient convaincus, il faut que vous ayez des institutions qui rendent des comptes. Et je pense qu'aujourd'hui, comme on est en train de traverser une crise du multilatéral dans certains endroits du globe, il faut le voir comme une opportunité pour se repenser et puis pour mettre en œuvre un certain nombre de réformes qui sont déjà dans les tuyaux depuis très longtemps. Je pense notamment à la réforme de la gouvernance onusienne, je pense à l'UNCTAD16, mais en fait, à travers les institutions, on doit se demander qu'est-ce qui est efficace, surtout dans la mesure où, aujourd'hui, c'est évident, les fonds qui sont disponibles pour le développement et pour la mise en place de ces politiques commerciales dont vous parliez, Monsieur le Ministre, sont finalement plus rares. Et donc, il faut embarquer non seulement les États membres dans un processus de réforme qui, d'ailleurs, a été engagé dans un certain nombre d'institutions, et j'aimerais saluer le travail qui a été effectué ici à la CNUSED, mais aussi dans un certain nombre d'organisations onusiennes, aller encore plus loin et surtout rendre compte à nos citoyens dans nos États, dans chacun des États membres, mais rendre compte en général à la communauté internationale de ce qui est fait. Et je crois que le multilatéralisme, il doit nécessairement s'inscrire dans des logiques aussi régionales. Vous parliez de commerce tout à l'heure. Si on ne développe pas les logiques régionales de développement et d'intégration à plusieurs niveaux, avec un niveau fort au niveau régional, on ne va pas y arriver non plus, et évidemment que c'est nécessaire, et donc c'est nécessaire aussi de promouvoir toutes les politiques qui sont en faveur de la paix. Nous, on a l'exemple de l'Union européenne, des différentes étapes de sa construction, et à quel point aujourd'hui, on n'imaginerait pas notre commerce sans finalement cette intégration régionale qui est l'une des plus poussées, mais qui peut se répliquer à certains niveaux dans d'autres endroits du globe. Et puis finalement, il faut évidemment ne pas oublier le volet développement. Il ne vous aura pas échappé que la France est représentée ici dans cette conférence qui est quand même sur le commerce par la ministre du Développement. Et je pense que c'est extrêmement important d'associer les deux et de surtout montrer à quel point le développement d'un certain nombre de pays se fait aussi par la coopération qui passe par le commerce. Et comme je disais tout à l'heure, en embarquant les différents acteurs, les acteurs aussi du secteur privé, et en ayant un impact beaucoup plus grand pour justement pouvoir rendre compte à nos citoyens.
Okay. Merci à vous. Okay, we have 1 or 2 minutes left. Very brief chance for each of you to give us a closing remark. If I can start with Poland. We've talked a lot, haven't we, about multilateralism in this conversation. The whole theme of this roundtable is reimagining trade, looking to the future. Reflecting on what you've heard today and what you hope will be the big takeaway in the room today, what would you say?
So, I think we have to reimagine the trade with the eyes wide open that we live in a moment where power is back. And we can't ignore it, we can't wish it away. We know that if we enter all together in an era of pure competition, we all will be worse off. The best developed countries, the Switzerland's, the hosts, to the countries in the middle, like my own, to the poorest countries. The challenge is reforming the rules with this recognition that the power matters, and finding areas, finding perhaps pools of cooperation regionally or in given sectors where the rules can be maintained. Okay. I think that's the way to really reimagine the trade.
Thank you very much. Minister from DRC, sorry I have to rush you. Could I get it down to 30 seconds each, please, if we can? Your final remarks.
Oui, le futur appartient à ceux qui le forgent. Ici, on est en train de forger notre futur commun. Je crois que ce qui ressort des débats d'aujourd'hui, c'est que nous devons construire ensemble une prospérité commune. Il n'est pas important, il n'est pas bon qu'un pays seul se sente prospère en regardant d'autres qui végètent dans la misère. Et donc le commerce est un instrument qui peut permettre des échanges à travers différents pays pour que ceux qui disposent des ressources, ceux qui disposent des moyens nécessaires, échangent avec ceux qui ont les moyens financiers pour que de ces échanges, les uns et les autres tirent des bénéfices. Et je crois que nous devons combattre cet unilatéralisme qui commence à s'installer, qui vient violer les principes qui ont été dictés depuis des années. Et donc l'interpellation est faite à l'OMC, Organisation mondiale du commerce, pour qu'elle qui régule le commerce international puisse appliquer les sanctions nécessaires à ceux qui s'investissent dans l'unilatéralisme, et la CNUSED est là pour accompagner cette politique.
Okay, thank you very much. 30 seconds, please, otherwise I'll be in big trouble. Yeah.
Thank you very much. What we need to do is to do things differently, re-establish trust. I wouldn't say re-establish, but enhance trust, and work for all good causes for the humanity of the world. Thank you.
15 seconds, brilliant. No pressure.
Aucune. Non, à l'heure où nous traversons une véritable crise des institutions et des fondements de notre système d'échanges internationaux, je pense qu'il faut prendre la crise pour une opportunité pour repenser, pour reconstruire, pour créer plus de redevabilité, et puis pour finalement vous nous inviter à rêver un commerce différent, pour déconstruire ces idées qu'on a de blocs, d'opposition, et revoir ce qui marche dans un monde définitivement multilatéral.
Okay, merci beaucoup. Thank you very much to all of our first panel of speakers. Let's give them a round of applause. Some invaluable insights there as we look to the future of reimagining trade. I kindly ask our speakers now to leave the stage and make way for our second panel. They'll be coming to the stage in just a moment. Bear with us while we have a little bit of a set change. In our second panel in this ministerial roundtable, we'll be taking this dialogue just a little bit further, and we'll be zooming in particular on national trade policies and how they should look going forward to support development and inclusivity. We'll be hearing examples from 4 other countries that will be coming onto the stage here, and I can tell you who our guests are now. We'll be hearing from Her Excellency Miss Camina Johnson-Smith, the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade for Jamaica. We'll also be hearing from His Excellency Mr. Basilio Zephanias Muhate, who's the Minister of Economy for Mozambique. Also on our panel this afternoon, in our second panel, we have His Excellency Mr. Mahuba Rahman, who's the Secretary at the Ministry of Commerce in Bangladesh. We also have Her Excellency Ms. Janal Kushakova, who's the Vice Minister of Trade and Integration in Kazakhstan. And we also have a 5th guest on our second panel this afternoon. That will be Ms. Tatiana Molsian, who's the Executive Secretary at the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe. Now, we had a big challenge to get our set changed in 30 seconds. I think we've almost made it. So could we now invite our second panelists to come up onto the stage, please? Let's give them a round of applause. Hi. Hi. Welcome. Welcome. Okay. Welcome, everybody. Thank you very much indeed for joining us here in Geneva and sparing your very valuable time to be with us. As I said, we're going to take the conversation a bit further now as part of this session called Reimagining Trade. We heard a lot of talk there about the importance of multilateralism, of course. I'd like to start with the case of Jamaica, if we can, first of all. And I want to be asking, Jamaica is a small island developing state, heavily dependent on trade, and facing unique and interesting vulnerabilities because of its size, location, and exposure to climate shocks. We heard earlier from the UNCTAD Secretary General that services trade has been growing dynamically and has been more resilient. What do you think is the opportunity in that respect?
Okay, thanks for the great question, and I won't focus on tourism, which is, I think, the service that most people associate with Jamaica. But we're rewriting our story. And what we'll speak about today is our global digital services sector and the strategy that we've been employing. It's one of the fastest growing economic sectors in Jamaica, and it's currently earning or generating estimated revenues of $900 million US annually. And it has enjoyed the highest employment growth rate, of any sector in Jamaica for the last decade. And this is due to several factors. So we have a comparative advantage because we are geographically proximate to the large North American markets. We have an English-speaking workforce, and we therefore developed fiscal incentives through a special economic zone regime, which has allowed the sector to grow. And we innovated during COVID. So while other countries were shutting down, we actually opened up. We changed our regulations, and we'll tell you more about it in a smaller space.
And has it been exceeding expectations?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And what we did was our Vision 2030, our National Development Plan, we developed that in 2009, but we included trade and services because we are vulnerable. Right. We're vulnerable to climate events, and we're heavily tourism dependent and dependent on agriculture. So expansion of our economic sectors has been absolutely critical for our future, key driver of inclusive and sustainable growth. So we prioritized investment in infrastructure, telecoms and broadband, and positioned ourselves as a digital service hub. We gave the sector strong marketing support, so intentional as a government, and got help from the IDB to train people specifically for the sector and to create and accelerate a hub within our investment promotion agency, which has supported 16 technology firms to date. We focus on not only securing foreign investment, but domestic entrepreneurship in the space. So we're looking at growing internally as well as bringing in foreign exchange. And this again aligns with our Vision 2030, which seeks to offer greater value-added services, to create higher value jobs, and of course boost economic growth. So our view is that enhancing our global digital competitiveness by strengthening e-commerce, e-business, modernizing trade, logistics, and customs practices, this technology-driven modernization will enhance our general growth, our global competitiveness, and contribute to broader sustainable development outcomes. So this integrated approach, that is looking at trade, human capital, innovation, and governance, this is a new way to leverage and to seek to harness sustainable growth.
And I can see the satisfaction in your face when you're talking about it. Congratulations on this project.
It's not been easy, so yes.
Sure. But congratulations, and it's a really interesting example to share that other people, I'm sure, will be listening very close to. If I can turn to Mozambique and the minister that joins us here. We talked a lot so far about the sort of uncertainty in the international trading system. How do you think that impacts the use of national trade policies for development right now?
Okay. Good day. Thank you for this opportunity to be here in this important panel with the gender equilibrium. As you see, 3 ladies and 3 gentlemen. So let me first tell you that the multilateral system in the world is in dangerous because I think that the largest economies, they push for their own reforms that interest their needs, and we as less developed countries, we are being affected. Our planning strategies are being affected with these uncertainties. We have some structural projects on agriculture, industrialization, and other issues. We are being very, very affected on that. The access to markets is also being affected, and mainly the investors, where they don't have the certainty of what's going to happen in a country.
Right.
They reduce their need to invest in countries such as Mozambique, for example. So this is very, very, we are worried about this uncertainty in the international and in the multilateral system.
And how do you think you and other countries can overcome some of these challenges? I mean, what are you thinking right now?
Mozambique has a new plan for the next 5 and for the next 25 years that includes a big efforts on reforms. We are conducting reforms on trade, all the trade system of the country, reforms on investment. We are also diversifying our economy. For example, tourism is for us a big challenge. We are very focused on tourism because of the potential that is there in the country, and the potential that trade can have a role in the tourism sector. But we have another sectors that we are investing highly, as energy, communication, logistics. So the potential is there. We need the reforms, and we need the capacity building to have our people trained to do that. So we are pushing for many reforms in order to challenge these uncertainties.
Minister, thank you very much indeed for those invaluable perspectives. I'd like to turn to Ms. Tatiana Molcian. Now, the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe, where you work, you're the executive secretary. You work on regional cooperation, trade, and standard setting. How do you think the trade agenda can promote export growth that drives that sort of wider sustainable development agenda? It's a big question, isn't it?
It is a big question, but I'm thinking of the discussions that we also had in the previous panel, and I think one of the speakers mentioned that now we're living in time of opportunities. And I was just listening to Jamaica, where we didn't hear about the tourism, but about the digital sector reform. So it is a time of big opportunities for trade. Now, how do we make sure that these big opportunities for trade are also opportunities for sustainability? And I think we all have the answers. For all of those who have come here today to support this multilateral effort, I think we have the commitment and the answer. And the basic solution that I would say is really to integrate this sustainability criteria into global trade agreements, yes? And so that when we have this growth expert aligns with environment or climate action policies. And the ongoing negotiations and that we have to promote trade in environmental goods and services in the context of the WTO is really an important chapter on this agenda. So this is, I think, the prerequisite and really the most important commitment that we can do all together. Also, again, I think that was touched upon in the previous panel, but we can discuss it even more. Regional, or to promote regional integration and sustainable value chains. This is very important because we need to strengthen resilience, but also to transfer technologies and create green jobs across interconnected markets, first of all. And in my region in particular, in the UNICE region, we have seen several examples of that. I think a good example is also how EU acts on that. Another point is about, so I spoke about the global, regional, but also at the national level. It's very important that countries really align their trade strategies with the sustainable development goal, including the climate commitments. And again, we have seen great example across different regions in our region, and I have next to me also representatives from Central Asia, where they have been really embedding sustainability objectives in the trade efforts, also in Eastern Europe, and of course in countries, I have multiple examples, but it would be Norway, Germany, so there are very practical examples. And facilitating access to international markets. So we need to create those investments, digital platforms that really lower the costs and emission. So we have to support this kind of processes.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. And we'll be hearing from our speaker from Kazakhstan in just a moment. But first, I'd just like to turn to the Secretary from the Ministry of Commerce in Bangladesh, Mr. Mahbub Rahman. Now, your country has seen remarkable growth and development, and next year it's going to graduate from least developed country status. Hopefully the microphone's working okay. Can you share how important international trade has been in the success of your country, and how national trade policies have fed into that? Oh, it's not working. Could you use this? The other mic.
1, 2.
This one works. There we go.
Thank you. Yes, Bangladesh is graduating next year in November next year. The country is heavily reliant on its export, and export is making about more than 13% of the GDP of the country. So it's the driver of growth in our country. But export is going to be affected by graduation, because if I broadly translate the effect of the graduation, it will be in 3 fronts. One is financing costs will be more in the post-graduation time. Number 2 will be erosion of duty-free, quota-free market access to other countries. And number 3 will be the non-tariff issues regarding trade, I mean cross-border trade, particularly in chips issues, I mean IPR issues will be in effect. And other technical barriers to trade will have to be addressed by most of the countries. So the countries who have shown their success earlier during enjoying the LDC-specific preferential market access will be definitely facing some challenges. And Bangladesh is not, I mean, immune from these type of challenges. Definitely, it will face some hard situations, but Bangladesh has some experience of facing such shocks. Perhaps you might remember that in 2007 to 2009 there were Asian dollar crisis and foreign exchange crisis. followed by Eurozone crisis, and then the American real estate crisis. And the whole of the world and the trading world was actually got some other shifts. And some of the exporting countries were facing shocks and troubles in retaining their trade preferences, although some of them were enjoying the market access. But still, they were badly affected. But Bangladesh could sustain that because we have some particular market, a competitive advantage in subsectors, particularly in the area of labor productivity and labor cost. We have competitiveness. That's a key. And again, another is that we have 180 million people. I mean, the domestic demand of goods and services are so high that it has its own resilience of absorbing shocks. So we are used to shocks, and I hope that...
So how do you deal with shocks, though?
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of achieving those development goals, the social, economic, environmental goals,
yes.
How do you still work towards those?
We are actually preparing ourselves to mitigate the change that is going to happen. We have, the European Union is the largest market of Bangladeshi products, particularly the apparel. And apparel will be facing duties, but the European Union has deferred the graduation enforcement for 3 years. That means there will be a gestation period for 3 years, and until 2029 we'll be enjoying the preference. That's a good point. Again, the UK will be doing the same. We are doing some FTAs and PTAs, regional integrations with some other countries, like Japan, South Korea, and Canada, and even with the European Union. So that's how we are actually, and then we are also liberalizing our non-tariff areas, rules and orders regarding our non-tariff regime, particularly we are facilitating, in line with the WTO trade facilitation agreement, we are actually making our rules and regulations in a way that we can cope with the changed situation.
Okay, yes. Thank you very much indeed for now. Thank you for those valuable contributions. I'd like now to turn to Kazakhstan. Thank you very much indeed for waiting patiently. Ms. Zhanel Kushakova, Vice Minister of Trade and Integration. I believe you'll be speaking in Russian. First of all, I visited Kazakhstan for the first time last year. Thank you for the hospitality. Now, Kazakhstan has celebrated its 10th year of membership to the World Trade Organization and co-hosted the 12th WTO Ministerial Conference back in 2022. How has Kazakhstan's accession to a rules-based trading system, basically accession to the WTO, influenced trade and investment for you as a country?
Thank you.
Maybe you can share one of your colleagues there. Yeah.
Thank you for your question.
Yeah.
I will continue in Russian, if it's possible.
Sure.
Да, действительно, мы в этом году отмечаем десятилетие со вступления в ВТО. Что нам дало это ВТО? Это, в принципе, те цели, которые мы перед собой ставили. Прежде всего, это та самая предсказуемость для наших международных партнеров, то, о чем много сегодня тоже говорилось. Наши инвесторы, они были уверены, что Казахстан теперь работает по тем правилам, по которым принято во всем мире. Это важно было для нас. В этих целях мы изменили практически на 90% свое национальное законодательство, которое затрагивало внешнюю торговлю, экономику. Мы улучшили стандарты. По-моему, практически за основу были приняты почти все стандарты, которые приняты были в Европейском Союзе. Это, конечно же, все привело к тому, что через некоторое время, не сразу, но наши предприятия начали быть более конкурентоспособными. Их товары стали быть, уже могли по полному праву выходить на новые рынки и уже пользоваться спросом. Здесь бы я еще хотела отметить, ну, цифры, наверное, да, они больше всего говорят о том, что, к чему привело наше членство в ВТО. За 10 лет наш товарооборот увеличился в 2 раза. На сегодня почти вся торговля, это 96%, приходится именно на члены ВТО. Сейчас составляет товарооборот это 142 миллиарда долларов. Для нас это большой показатель. Количество наших товарных позиций, экспортных товарных позиций увеличилось с 2000 примерно до 4000. То есть мы стали более широкую линейку товаров предлагать. И вот я здесь тоже бы хотела отметить, что многие спикеры до меня говорили на предыдущей сессии о том, что вот эти колебания, неизвестность некоторая, которая произошла в этом году из-за тарифов, да, они, конечно, не затронули, наверное, поставки товаров, которые являются сырьевыми. И они больше затронули по товарам, которые более средней и глубокой переработки. И это, конечно, не очень хорошо. И в том процессе реформирования, о котором мы все сегодня говорим, я думаю, что надо бы обращать внимание, что одно дело, когда мы поддерживаем развивающиеся страны, но нужно уделять, чтобы поддерживать не только экспорт сырья, а именно поддерживать экспорт и переработку, и дальнейшее развитие, потому что именно экспортируя средний и высокий передел, страна действительно развивается и перестает быть просто каким-то сырьевым придатком. Возвращаясь к цифрам по Казахстану, хотела бы сказать, что вот как раз, что темп прироста именно не сырьевого экспорта у нас гораздо больше, чем рост в принципе экспорта самого. Это как раз благодаря той позиции, которую мы заняли и в рамках ВТО, и тем реформам, которые проводятся правительством Казахстана внутри. Сфера услуг, как вот было отмечено и мадам генсекретарем, тоже действительно наиболее динамично развивающий сектор, и у нас рост идет достаточно приличный. С момента вступления в ВТО на 40% торговля услугами у нас выросла. Составила сейчас уже 25 миллиардов долларов. В инвестиционной сфере это вот то, что мы преследовали, когда вступали в ВТО, получается, у инвесторов стало более предсказуемый характер нашей торговой политики внутри. Мы предоставляем широкий спектр преференций, налоговых, тарифных преференций для того, чтобы инвесторам было интересно заходить и работать на нашем рынке. И вот тут также затрагивался вопрос как бы региональной интеграции. Здесь очень тоже и играет значение, что Казахстан стал как бы одним из ворот, скажем так, на и такой евразийский регион, на регион Центральной Азии с нашими возможностями свободного доступа товаров уже на данные рынки. Вот опять-таки цифры, возвращаясь, это вот у нас в 2024 году объем инвестиций в сравнении с 2015 годом увеличился на 16% и составил уже 17,8 миллиардов долларов. А в совокупности за 10 лет это 217 миллиардов долларов прямых инвестиций было привлечено в Казахстан. Мы считаем, что это одну из важнейших ролей именно играло наше вступление в ВТО. В целом мы считаем, что за счет ВТО, конечно, кроме участия в таких хороших мероприятиях больших, оно позволяет взаимодействовать на равных, говорить на одном языке и добиваться справедливого отношения к Казахстану и казахстанской продукции прежде всего. Спасибо.
Vice Minister, thank you very much indeed. Some very impressive numbers in there. Thank you very much indeed for sharing those with us. Ms. Tatiana Mosian, I'd like to turn back to you, Executive Secretary at the UN Economic Commission for Europe. You know, we hear a lot about how trade can bring all sorts of opportunities and benefits, some challenges, of course, along the way as well. What policies do you think are needed for trade to create those sort of socially inclusive employment opportunities, and also that green, that environmentally friendly, sustainable development going forward?
Not an easy question, one.
No, I'm sorry about that.
No, and since we are today here at the UNCTAD meeting, and I think UNCTAD, but also all of the UN, let's say all of the international system, has a lot of responsibility when it comes to create these incentives and policies. And we already working together, and not only us with UNCTAD, but I mean UNICE, but also my colleagues from ECA or the Economic Commission for Africa, ECLAC, or ESCAP and ESCWA, to really look how we can make sure that we bring this trade and align these trade policies with the development priorities, yes? And there are some practical ways on how we ensure that, and you've emphasized that we have this European or pan-European, because Central Asia, also North America, is part of UNICE. But in some sectors, we have these approaches and very practical instruments that we see benefits of its application globally. For example, our one of the subsidiary bodies, which is the UN CFACT, or UN Center for Trade Facilitation and Electronic Business, which acts as the focal point for trade facilitation standards and recommendations within the entire UN, is developing now a transparency protocol, and it's about to serve as a global, open, technology-neutral framework that enables trusted and interoperable exchange of data on sustainability, traceability, and circularity within supply chains, because ESG frameworks for sustainable value chains is really a key objective and where we should focus our efforts. These kind of tools are crucial, are essential to promote the, if I can put it, the verifiable or verifiability, I don't know if that's a word, of sustainability claims, but also greater reporting efficiency. Also, another aspect that we can look at is to foster innovative ecosystems that encourage, in a certain way, also experimentation, national and regional reviews, and also leveraging the knowledge of different tools, platforms, meetings, and governments. Within EC, we have the Transformative Innovation Network, which really helps countries to look how innovation can really make the difference. Empowering SMEs, that always stays as one of the best tools we have in our arsenal, if I can say, and also empowering the specific group, marginalized groups even, through recommendation, evidence-based recommendations, capacity building activities. Another very practical way to overcome these challenges is to encourage, for example, sustainable public-private partnerships, the PPPs. We have even developed a rating system of PPPs, how they correspond to the sustainable development goals. And it's very much in line with, and I know there will be a session tomorrow or the day after about the Sevilla, Compromiso de Sevilla, and also the Avasa program of action for landlocked developing countries. So this kind of very practical instruments that we can together either, UNCTAD with the member states, with the regional commission, can help and make this difference for achieving these goals.
Thank you very much indeed for those practical action points. And the Sevilla agreement will be discussed in the next roundtable, actually today, around about 4:30, if I finish on time. Now, let me just turn back to Bangladesh, Secretary, Ministry of Commerce. We talked earlier about trade being the sort of driving force in growth and development in your country. How do you see yourselves sustaining momentum, keeping that going forward? You're graduating from the LDC status, but it comes amid all this uncertainty that we're seeing out there. How are you going to keep it going?
Well, we're trying hard. We are making our policies, the current policies that are compatible with the WTO rules, we'll be continuing those. For instance, the back-to-back LC system for export-oriented industries. And then we'll liberalize our trading policies, trade policies, and then we have to enhance logistic efficiency, and but these are the things that we need to do.
And can you do all that amid all this uncertainty that's out there?
No, those will be actually those will be making our domestic, I mean, our industrial base efficient. But dealing with the overseas markets is tricky, and that's the main point to deal with. So earlier, in my earlier stint, I was talking about FTAs and PTAs. We have something more to do. We have to diverse our products. And that diversification is basically the key to develop our economy and retain the strength on our export sector. So that's a difficult situation. Until now, Bangladesh exports a lot of products, but the concentration is on apparel. About 84% of the total export is on the apparel sector. We export pharmaceuticals, we export plastics, we export processed food and light engineering, and a lot of things we export. But still, the share of those products are not that high. So we are trying hard to enhance the share of those products. I mean, by that way, we are diversifying our products. And in the same line, we are also trying to expand our market abroad. For instance, we export our pharmaceutical products to almost 100 countries of the world, including USA, European Union, Australia, and most of the parts of the world. We want to scale those up. And that's why we are working. But the chips will be actually affecting the market access for our products. So we are trying to address those issues with our importing countries.
Okay, we have to leave it there. I'd like to go back to the Minister from Mozambique. Thanks again for being with us. As we look to the future, what do you see UNCTAD doing to support countries like Mozambique to get the right trade policies in place that support development? What do you want to see? And if you can keep your answer to around a minute, that would be great. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. I think that UNCTAD can continue its role as advisor for technical assistance for less developed countries as Mozambique. It is important for us to have this assistance and this support from UNCTAD. Also, we need to improve our capacity in negotiation on trade agreements. We have many countries that has agreements with us, so we need this role of UNCTAD is very important to help us on negotiation. And also we are pushing for reforms on trade and our economics. So the transformation of our economy is very important. So I think also that UNCTAD can play an important role on this. And in other issues, for example, research and data. Yeah. So there are many reports that can support us on decision-making processes. So I think UNCTAD plays an important role for Mozambique and for developed countries. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed to you, Minister. If we can turn back to Jamaica and the Minister that's joining us. Let's stick with UNCTAD and the role of it going forward. We've got lots of different countries, different situations, different circumstances. How can UNCTAD sort of bridge those countries and sort of enhance the sort of commitment to multilateral cooperation? Again, it's a big question, but if you can get it into 1 minute, that would be great.
Well, UNCTAD needs to keep doing what it's doing. Yeah. It has been very good at helping small island developing states navigate the complexities of global trade environment. And I think its methodologies are highly respected already in respect of its research and capacity building approach, its scientific methodologies. And therefore, I think they possibly could find a way or find ways to expose more countries to the benefits of successful programs and projects implemented in others, and allow for it to be searchable, for example. I think it's critical that UNCTAD continue to give the type of assistance which it is now, and to focus more, perhaps, on looking at women in trade, for example, which ensures that you're capturing the social goals which you mentioned earlier. I think we need to be vigilant. UNCTAD needs to be vigilant about new sustainability goals being built into arrangements that become new trade barriers, new non-tariff barriers, and that helping countries of different sizes in this way, different developmental stages and needs, will undoubtedly help us to grow. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Vice Minister from Kazakhstan, in terms of what you want to see sort of UNCTAD do going forward in terms of supporting countries like Kazakhstan, other Central Asian regional countries, what help and support do you think you now need? What are the priorities to get them integrated even more into the global trading system going forward? And again, if you can speak in about 1 minute, that would be fantastic. Thank you.
Ну, прежде всего, та поддержка, которую сейчас оказывает, мы ее видим и очень ценим, это роль в содействии интеграции Казахстана, я уверена, других стран Центральной Азии в мировую торговую систему через оказание аналитической, консультационной и технической поддержки, то, о чем, в принципе, сейчас говорили уважаемые спикеры до меня. Мы, как страна, не имеющая выхода к морю, конечно, самое главное, наверное, для нас барьер – это возможность осуществления транзита, доступ к этим транзитным маршрутам, опять-таки инфраструктурные издержки и снижение издержек именно по доступу наших товаров к рынкам, к мировым рынкам. И, соответственно, UNCTAD, мы знаем, что она уделяет особое внимание вопросам именно развития торговой инфраструктуры, повышения транспортной связанности, и мы в этом хотим участвовать и участвуем, и это было бы очень важно для нас. На сегодня, вот насколько я знаю, те механизмы, которые уже при содействии UNCTAD разработаны, они очень широко используются. Ну, прежде всего, это программа imaginar, eroded, All in UNCTAD, кажется, еще одна программа называется. Мы это полностью используем, все эти наработки, в первую очередь для цифровизации торговых процедур, для того, чтобы устранить все те нетарифные барьеры, о которых говорилось, и чтобы снизить издержки для трансграничной торговли и, соответственно, повысить прозрачность всех торговых отношений, которые будут. Хотела бы вот отметить, что вот при содействии UNCTAD, а также Международного торгового центра у нас был разработан, мы стали частью национального информационного портала, это Central Asia Gateway, да, где мы сделали совместно с странами Центральной Азии как раз информационный портал, в котором содержатся наши таможенные, транспортные вещи. Да, и надо сказать, что он даже стал признан лучшим информационным порталом, да, и это нас как бы очень стимулирует дальше развиваться. Поэтому я думаю, что в целом деятельность UNCTAD помогает, и мы видим в этом большое будущее и содействие, в принципе, выражаю большую благодарность. Спасибо.
Vice Minister, thank you very much indeed. Last challenge of the day, 10-second takeaways. Ms. Tatiana Mulcian, 10-second takeaway for you from our conversation today?
Make use of the opportunities, but keeping to the principles and solidarity to multilateralism.
Well done, thank you. Jamaica? 10 seconds?
We need to find the opportunities as well. We need to not fix what's not broken. So UNCTAD needs to keep doing what it does well, which is ensure that targeted approaches, the not cookie-cutter approaches, continue to be delivered to countries in need.
That was 16 seconds.
Sorry.
Mozambique Minister, what's your 10-second takeaway?
Increase multilateralism, increase the South-South cooperation, and enforce the UNCTAD role.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes, UNCTAD should extend all of support to the developing economies to sustain their growth and development.
Thank you very much indeed. Well, what a great conversation we've had. Some really valuable insights there, underlying that sort of trade remains one of the most important tools for advancing sustainable development. And amid all that uncertainty and turmoil out there that we hear about, there needs to be this renewal of global cooperation going forward. And some good food for thought there for UNCTAD coming out of our conversation as well. So thank you very much again to all of our panelists. Let's give them a round of applause. We'll be taking a short break now of 2 or 3 minutes, and then we'll be going back on stage for our next roundtable. Thank you very much indeed.